what unfolds when Europe's principal economic pillar abandons 7 decades of Atlantic alignment to safeguard its industrial base. This morning, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz announced Berlin's withdrawal from NATO's energy sanctions framework and finalized a sweeping natural gas agreement with Moscow that bypasses every Western restriction imposed since 2022. This step is neither cautious diplomatic balancing nor routine economic adjustment. It is a conscious, strategic decision. Germany has elevated national economic survival above alliance fidelity. In doing so, Berlin has initiated the most profound rupture in transatlantic relations since the Marshall Plan consolidated the Western Bloc in 1947. The timing highlights the severity of Germany's predicament. Following the cutoff of Russian gas, German industrial output has contracted by 23%. Manufacturing energy costs have surged by 340%, compelling major firms such as Volkswagen, BASF, and Siemens to shift production capacity to Asia and North America. At the household level, energy expenditures now absorb 18% of median income, producing the most acute cost of living crisis since reunification. German policymakers concluded that sustaining alliance solidarity under these conditions was no longer economically viable. Scholz's announcement avoided conciliatory language aimed at Washington. It amounted to an explicit act of strategic defiance. German industrial interests, he declared, could no longer be subordinated to geopolitical objectives that erode the country's economic foundations. Berlin would pursue energy partnerships that benefit German citizens irrespective of alliance preferences. This statement constitutes a direct rejection of a principle that has underpinned NATO since 1949, that member states subordinate key economic interests to collective security imperatives. The Nord Stream 3 agreement reveals the depth of German-Russian coordination despite 2 years of ostensible economic confrontation. The pipeline is designed to deliver 80 billion cubic meters of gas annually via Baltic Sea routes that bypass Ukrainian, Polish, and Baltic territory. Construction is set to begin immediately, using German engineering firms and Russian state financing. The project is projected to generate roughly 40,000 German jobs and around 12 billion euros annually in transit revenues for Berlin. Moscow offered conditions Washington could not match: guaranteed supply stability, predictable pricing, and long-term technological collaboration. The reaction from NATO headquarters underscored that alliance leaders recognize the implications extend far beyond energy policy. Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg convened emergency consultations within hours, demanding explanations from German officials who did not attend. U.S. authorities warned of immediate sanctions on German energy firms involved, prompting Berlin to respond that such actions would be regarded as economic warfare against a sovereign European state. The strategic logic behind Germany's move demonstrates why traditional alliance management tools have lost traction. Germany imports 60% of its energy and cannot achieve full renewable-based security before at least 2040. American liquefied natural gas costs roughly 280% more than Russian pipeline gas and would require infrastructure investments German taxpayers cannot shoulder amid recession. Simultaneously, China has become Germany's largest export destination, absorbing 22% of manufacturing exports, further constraining Berlin's strategic options and magnifying the effects across Europe. Responses from other NATO members reveal the danger of a cascading unraveling along the alliance's eastern flank. France accelerated talks with Moscow over nuclear fuel supplies. Italy discreetly resumed purchases of Russian aluminum through intermediaries. Hungary and Slovakia openly supported Berlin's stance, asserting that energy security lies squarely within national sovereignty. Washington's available responses expose structural weaknesses in alliance governance. Military pressure on Germany is inconceivable. Broad economic sanctions would accelerate European fragmentation. Diplomatic isolation would formalize Germany's departure without restoring influence. German strategic thinking reflects a growing belief that U.S. security guarantees have diminished in practical value as Germany's economic vulnerabilities have intensified. NATO's Article 5 deters invasion, a scenario no rational actor seeks, but offers no shield against energy coercion or economic warfare. Now the primary threats. The psychological shift is equally consequential. Berlin increasingly rejects a subordinate role in alliance structures that demand sacrifice without reciprocal accommodation. When Washington urges energy independence while marketing higher-cost alternatives, solidarity begins to resemble extraction rather than partnership. Moscow's strategy exploited these fault lines. Russia relied not on military intimidation, but on economic incentives and patient positioning, creating conditions in which German leaders judged economic survival to outweigh alliance loyalty. The result is an unavoidable transformation of the alliance. Germany's break demonstrates that NATO cohesion has limits when members confront existential economic pressure. Either alliance frameworks adapt to national economic realities or further defections will fracture Western unity. This moment signals the erosion of American alliance management based on hierarchy and the rise of European strategic autonomy. Germany's decision reinforces a simple principle. Enduring partnerships rest on respect for vital interests, not enforced sacrifice. Domestically, the political calculus behind Scholz's move reflects mounting pressure. The Alternative for Germany party reached 28% in polling by campaigning on energy sovereignty and opposing sanctions seen as harming German workers while benefiting American firms. Even within the governing coalition's traditional base, questions intensified over why Germany should dismantle its industrial core for Ukrainian territorial integrity when comparable sacrifices were not demanded of the United States. From an intelligence perspective, the episode suggests deliberate preparation rather than improvisation. Negotiations reportedly proceeded for months via Swiss intermediaries while Berlin publicly adhered to sanctions. Russian firms positioned pipeline materials well in advance, enabling immediate construction. The operational sophistication on both sides points to careful planning rather than reactive policymaking. The implications extend beyond energy markets to alliance durability and the evolution of a multipolar system. When alliance costs exceed perceived benefits, even long-standing partners prioritize national survival over collective solidarity. Germany's choice aligns with theories of alliance decay when dominant powers fail to deliver essential security goods. European security architecture now faces structural revision as Berlin's move legitimizes bilateral arrangements with Russia. Over unified Western positions, Moscow's message to economically strained states is implicit. Accommodation offers relief, while bearing the costs of distant conflicts does not. Financially, Germany's participation in payment mechanisms outside SWIFT and dollar-dominated networks signals a tangible shift. Energy transactions structured through ruble, euro arrangements reduce exposure to U.S. monetary policy while providing Russia continued access to hard currency. Technologically, Germany regains access to areas constrained under U.S. policy, demanded comparable arrangements. Estonia reconsidered its energy transition timeline, faced with the loss of tens of thousands of jobs. The episode highlights a broader dimension of economic warfare. Russia achieved strategic aims without military confrontation, relying on sustained economic positioning until European costs became politically untenable. American assumptions proved flawed. Washington expected economic pain to reinforce cohesion, treating energy security as abstract rather than reliable allies seek alternatives that better protect their interests. Germany's confidence rests on a sober assessment of American retaliation limits, shaped by Berlin's central role in European security. Washington cannot afford to lose Germany without jeopardizing NATO cohesion, granting Berlin leverage in energy disputes. The cascade became visible almost immediately. Poland's energy minister contacted Russian officials about coal imports. Czech industrial associations, including Russian nuclear technology, space cooperation, and industrial processes essential to advanced manufacturing. Chemical firms also recover access to rare earth elements and specialized compounds vital for pharmaceuticals and automotive production. Historically, alliances function through voluntary cooperation grounded in mutual benefit, not coercive subordination enforced through economic pressure. When leading powers demand disproportionate sacrifice without reciprocal gains, even existential intelligence failures compounded the setback. Despite extensive surveillance and sharing, Western services failed to detect months of German-Russian coordination, revealing limitations in monitoring economic diplomacy conducted through legitimate channels. NATO's institutional crisis deepens as Germany's defection shows alliances cannot compel compliance when members face existential economic threats. Article 5 loses relevance when economic warfare eclipses military deterrence. Without adaptation to economic security realities, further defections are likely. China's role accelerates this dynamic. Beijing has encouraged energy partnerships that dilute American influence across Eurasia, while Chinese financial institutions facilitate currency swap mechanisms enabling Russian trade beyond dollar systems, creating parallel economic architectures outside U.S. oversight. Berlin's gamble reflects a calculated judgment. Washington cannot tolerate NATO's collapse, yet lacks effective tools to prevent defection once costs become unbearable. Germany's economic and political weight forces American accommodation even when energy decisions clash with alliance preferences. The demonstration effect is spreading. Observing Berlin's stance, other U.S. partners reassess their own constraints. Japan reconsiders energy restrictions inflating manufacturing costs. South Korea explores alternative supply chains. Australia questions resource export policies that prioritize alliance over solidarity when pressures become intolerable. Berlin's move recalibrates transatlantic relations toward parity, rather than subordination. American management has reached its limits. Germany has demonstrated that full sovereignty ultimately prevails.